Back in 2020, I asked the question, why buy the iPhone 12 Pro when the 12 is almost just as good? Oh, how the turns have tabled. Before I go on, thanks to Subcase for sponsoring a part of this video. You'll hear more about their amazing cases soon. So these are Apple's new iPhones. Well, two of them, the main ones. This one's the iPhone 14 Pro and this one's the iPhone 14. $1,000, $800. Which one should you buy? Well, there is a growing sentiment in the tech community that if you're buying a non-Pro, you should probably just buy an iPhone 13 or even a 12. Why? What's going on? Quick recap. This year, the iPhone 14 Pro got the new processor, the new cameras, the overall upgrade treatment, even replacing the notch with a dynamic island. The iPhone 14 got zilch, same design, same processor as last year, very same-ish camera. The more you think about it and the more you dive deeper, you start thinking, looks like the 14 only exists to entice people to justify spending $200 extra for the 14 Pro. Well, kind of. It does seem like Apple is trying to widen the gap between the non-Pro and the Pro models. Up until now, the non-Pro iPhones were kind of marketed as the iPhone to get. They were prevalent in the market details, they were shown off at events, they were main stage on Apple.com. The Pro models were considered the extra step, the geeky smartphone, the luxury smartphone. Now this still holds true, but gone are the days when the non-Pros are almost just as good. Now, the two different iPhone lines are clearly separated for two different types of people. Group A, these are the people that don't care that much about smartphones, they just want to upgrade to a new device when the time comes and they want it to be like good, reliable and, new. No shade, of course, that's a perfectly healthy and maybe even the logical way to go about it. This group of people is most likely to just walk into the carrier store, sign a new contract, walk away with iPhone 14, that's new, okay. I know that even the base iPhones are kind of expensive in some parts of the world, but in other parts, getting a phone contract with your carrier deal is perfectly manageable. Group B, from slight tech enthusiasts to the more geeky ones. That's the group that spots that the iPhone 14 is a bit of a low blow. It doesn't even have a high refresh rate, which in 2022 is basically standard even for cheaper phones on the Android side. Its camera needs a bit more juice and the competition seems to be beating it in 2022. Group B will see the value and want to get that iPhone 14 Pro. Don't worry, if you're in Group A and want to switch over to Group B, I'm here to brush you up on the details. First point, design. Yes, they look very similar, but there are a couple of really important differences as well. Starting with available colors, if you want something more fun or vibrant, it's the iPhone 14. The Pro is more muted and mature, and yes, we have the new deep purple color, but it's still darker. Instead, you may want the more cheerful iPhone 14 purple. Second, the weight. The iPhone 14 has an aluminum frame, the iPhone 14 Pro has a stainless steel frame. Yes, it's premium, it's shiny, it's nice, but it's also a bit heavier. And then the iPhone 14 Pro's camera module is becoming kinda comically huge. Of course, that's great because it has bigger sensors inside, but I've seen complaints about it online, so I figured to draw your attention to it if you've missed it. Lastly, we need to talk about the dynamic island. It's the first time since the iPhone X that we actually see a major redesign up here. Yes, last year we got the slimmer notches, but they were still notches. Some people will love the dynamic island just for the novelty. Its smooth animations add to that premium iPhone feel for sure, but there are some that will see it as a bit more off-putting than the regular notch. Okay, so what does that dynamic island do? It's a pill-shaped cutout that has to be there for the selfie camera and the Face ID sensors, but Apple decided to hide it in plain sight by adding widgets around it. It can show you your media playback controls or any sort of ongoing widget notification type thing. It still only works with the stock apps, but the API is open for other developers. And as you see, we're slowly transitioning from talking about the design to the display. In terms of colors and sharpness, both screens look great, both are OLED and both are tuned the same. When we go beyond that, we can find some differences. Most importantly, the iPhone 14 Pro has a 120Hz ProMotion screen. The iPhone 14 is locked at 60Hz. Look, iOS 16 is very smooth and it feels great on 60, but once you go 120, it's hard to go back. Android phones, even ones that go for $400 or $500, come with at least 90Hz screens in 2022. And yes, sure, you could say that's a minor complaint, but it's an experience thing, and for $800, don't we deserve the experience? Then there's the other difference. The iPhone 14 Pro can hit 2000 nits peak brightness for short bursts of time. That's great, but honestly, even under the searing August sun, I've been perfectly fine viewing other phones' screens. The iPhone 14's peak brightness is 1200 nits, and I promise it's good enough. Okay, quick word about performance then. Here are all the geeky words. The iPhone 14 Pro is powered by the brand new Apple A16 Bionic processor. The iPhone 14 is powered by last year's Apple A15 with an added GPU core. Let's boil it down. The new one is slightly more energy efficient, slightly more powerful. The old one is still very good at topping benchmark charts all over the place, even in 2022. So it's definitely a question of the iPhone 14 being perfectly good enough, in the 14 Pro having that extra oomph, extra headroom that you might not necessarily need right now. As per our in-house battery tests, thanks to its efficiency, the iPhone 14 Pro can consistently last as much as an hour longer than the iPhone 14. But when 3D gaming, that powerful chip and the 120Hz screen put a squeeze on the battery, and the non-Pro actually lasts longer. Now, onto camera. Recent Android flagships have put the squeeze on Apple. Both Samsung and Google are taking awesome, sharp, detailed photos, and the iPhone 13 camera was beginning to feel a bit outdated. So the iPhone 14 Pro has a new 48 megapixel sensor that can take some really good photos. The pixels in the sensor are typically binned in clusters of 4, so the phone takes 12 megapixel photos with quicker light collection. However, if you choose Pro RAW mode, you gain access to the full sensor resolution, and those photos look fantastic. Small caveat, you need to know a bit about editing RAW photos, because the phone will not do the post-processing for you. But Apple's stock Photos app can process RAW, and you can try your luck by tapping the Auto Enhance button, which may or may not do all the work for you. Another caveat, Pro RAW photos are huge in size, so use with care. Then there's the telephoto camera with 3x optical zoom, which is great for portraits. Apple even used the 48 megapixel main sensor to add a 2x zoom step by cropping into the sensor. Basically, this gives you more zoom steps to frame a photo in portrait mode specifically. The iPhone 14 got none of these upgrades. Still 12 megapixels, still jagged details, a bit of over-sharpening going on in the photos. It does have a portrait mode, but only does it in a wide-angle perspective, as you know, no telephoto camera. But both of these phones do have the new action mode for video, which is incredible at stabilizing shaky shots. I can even shoot video while skateboarding. And both have a slightly improved cinematic mode from last year. Obviously, if you care about camera and taking lots of photos, the Pro is the obvious choice. Now, this has always somewhat been the case, but for most years so far it was a choice of telephoto or no telephoto. Now we have a much better camera in this one, so it kind of justifies the $200 extra. Which is why I said at the top of this video that the 14 kind of looks like it exists just to justify the price of this one. Before I go on to the conclusion, let me just say that no matter which of these phones you pick, you will definitely want to keep around a case or two just to protect them while you go out doing different activities, especially if that includes hikes or camping or going to the beach. So take a look at today's sponsor, Subcase with the UB Pro Mag case. It's a fantastic choice for full phone protection from all sides. An unbending polycarbonate shell with shock-absorbing TPU corners makes sure to keep the body of the phone pristine, and an integrated screen protector on the front doesn't allow the display to get scratched up by random debris. It is fully compatible with MagSafe accessories, and this ring on the back serves double duty. It can be a kickstand, but it can also be a ring holder for easier grip of the device. Plus, you get a detachable belt clip holster for even more options. This is basically everything you want from a protective case, all in one package. Subcase is currently running a 25% hero discount for teachers, students, military, first responders and healthcare workers when you shop at subcase.com. You can follow the link below or just type iPhone 14 case by Subcase on Amazon.com to explore all the cases the company offers and pick your favorite. Thanks to Subcase, now let's go on to the final words. The Pro wins, hands down. Honestly, if someone were to ask me, should I buy an iPhone 14, I would ask, why not a 13 or a 12? It just doesn't bring that much new to the table. On the other hand, if someone were to ask me should I buy a 14 Pro or a 13 Pro, I'd say 14 Pro. All that said, we haven't even talked about the iPhone 14 Plus yet. It's not out at the time of making this video. So we may revisit this topic, but it does look like the iPhone 14 Plus is for those people that want a large screened iPhone but don't want to pay Pro Max money. Still, even then, I would recommend an iPhone 14 Pro, the small one, over an iPhone 14 Plus, which will have a worse camera and, you know, the older processor. Anyway, thanks for checking out our video of the iPhone 14 Pro versus the iPhone 14. I'm Press, this is the PhoneArena channel. The subscribe button and like buttons should be somewhere down there. I'm not sure where I'm facing. See ya!